recording this part of the podcast, 9:45 Pacific time. I thought the Clippers-Denver game was going to be a lot better. I thought Kirk Goldsberry and I would be talking about all these unbelievable narratives. Instead, all the narratives came in the first game of the day and the second game of the day, and then the games got worse as they went along. But Denver kind of put it on the Clippers tonight, Kirk. I did not see this coming. I thought Denver was lucky to be 2-2. I thought the Clippers were a better team. And Jamal Murray became playoff Jamal Murray again tonight. Harden was invisible. Where do you want to start? What jumped out to you tonight?
You got to start with Jamal Murray. I mean, that was the game they needed from him in this series, in this exact moment. It was his best playoff game since the bubble. The Clippers looked tired, though. The Clippers looked, I don't know if it was elevation or they just hadn't had enough rest, but they looked like they were slower to the basketball. They looked old, and you sort of alluded to it, Bill. James Harden did not look very good. I think the headline's got to be Jamal Murray, but there's a little bit of an underwhelming current from these Los Angeles Clippers to me.
Well, if you said before the game, Jamal Murray's going to have his best game of the playoffs and his best game in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And also Russell Westbrook's going to come off the bench and score 21 points in 23 minutes, I would have said, the Clippers are in trouble. But I'm with you. They look slow to the ball.
Yeah.
There was a moment in the fourth quarter for about 4 or 5 minutes where they looked like they did earlier in the series. But other than that, the Harden thing, it's just dumbfounding. I can't, he's now in his mid-30s. He was in the 2008 draft, 2009 draft. I can't even remember. And it's just been such a huge part of his resume, his career, how we're going to remember him 30 years from now as like this amazing player. And just over and over again, it wasn't quite there in the playoffs. They really needed a big James Harden game, either last game or this game. One of those two. Does he have it in him anymore? Maybe are we expecting too much? Because I voted for him for third team all NBA this year. I thought maybe, one of the first 5 games he could own. I guess not.
Now, 3 of 9 tonight. I mean, players that shot more than him. Zubac had 15 shots. Kawhi had 15 shots. Norman Powell had 12 shots. Bogdanovich had 11 shots. 3 of 9, Bill. And then, okay, maybe he's getting it done with the dimes. No, barely had 5 assists. A lot of those were later in the game. I'm ready to say if it's a big game, like a game 5 and big series like this, I'm almost more expectant of this kind of performance from him at this point, which is sad. So I don't think we're ever going to see it. Now, maybe we get another chance here in game 6 or game 7, and he tells me I'm wrong with a performance that just turns back the clock. But this was just a complete no-show from a guy who's had a bunch of no-shows over the last 10 years in big moments like this.
Yeah, I did a rare tweet. I tweeted that they had him guarding Jokic in the second half so we could remember that he was in the game because it was too hard to tell. They're built so that they could survive kind of an offensive no-show game from Harden.
Yeah.
The problem for them was Denver went up a notch. They kind of stayed the same. Denver got Westbrook back, which was huge for them because that was just 23 extra minutes from a bench guy. They played Jordan a little bit more. I'm with you. Maybe the elevation going against an older team helped a tiny bit. But then, I start thinking about some of the stuff I used to write about back when my fingers worked. And this is a Clippers team that has just been snake bitten really since they moved to Southern California. And that loss they had, game 4, where they fought all the way back and then they lose on an alley-oop where the ball seemed like it was touching the tip of Aaron Gordon's fingers and it ends up counting because they couldn't overrule it. And that loss was so devastating. I'm watching the game tonight and I'm like, man, maybe that beat the fight out of them a little bit. I don't know.
This is a team that was supposed to be one of the best defenses in the playoffs. One of the best defensive rebounding teams in the playoffs. The stat that I kept going back to is I think they ranked first in defensive rebounding percentage all year long. And then in this playoffs, they ranked 15 out of 16 in that category. Some of that is because of Jokic. But this is also a defense when Jamal Murray gets going. You'd think Kawhi Leonard or Chris Dunn or some combination of Ty Lue schemes could do it. And they just didn't have the fight tonight at all. And I don't know how many points did the Clippers end up with? 131, Bill Simmons.
The Nuggets.
The Nuggets ended up with 131, Bill. And that's to me, that's a dumb guy stat, but that's what you need to know. You're not going to win a lot of playoff games if you give up 131 points. So this is a proud defense that just laid an egg tonight.
Yeah, and you think like big picture with the Clippers, it's never easy with them in a playoff series. In the history of their franchise since they moved to Southern California, they've never won a playoff series in four or five games ever.
Yeah.
Like, think about how impossible that is.
That's crazy.
They had the 2021 where Kawhi is averaging 30 a game and looking like one of the best guys in the league. He gets hurt. They end up losing the Western Finals, only time they ever made it. They blew the 3-1 lead to Denver in 2020. They blew that 19-point lead to the Rockets in 2015 when they had a chance to close and go to the West Finals. They blew that OKC series in 2014 when Chris Paul, the point guard, just completely fell apart in game 5 when they could have had a lead coming back to Clippers. They had that 2006 against the Suns when they put in Daniel Ewing and he fouled Raja Bell on a 3 and the Suns ended up winning in OT. This is just the legacy of this team. And if you talk to any of their fans, it's almost a little like junior Red Sox-ish before 2004. They build the hopes up. They convince themselves this is the year, and then they get kicked in the nuts. I still think they can win game 6. What's a little scary is that Jokic didn't put a lot of miles on himself tonight. No. Murray carried everything. Westbrook carried some. They were able to rest him, and he could just snap his fingers in game 6 and dominate them like he did in game 4. It's looking bleak for the Clippers. I might have been wrong on this series, Kirk. I'm bummed.
I was wrong too. I remember, but I was like very scared coming into the playoffs because I was like looking at this Clippers team. They have that history you just mentioned, but then they have James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, and Ben Simmons, who, by the way,
enough.
What a beautiful shot tonight. He got to the just inside the paint. He rises up for that little half hook and he almost hit the rim. God bless him.
It was to the left of the basket. He shot it at 10:30 at night on a clock. It just was diagonal to the left. It was rough.
But on Verno's podcast like 3 weeks ago, when all the trends that I look at throughout the year are pointing to the Clippers are the best analytic team closing the season. And
except
I said
they're the
Verno,
Clippers.
Except they're the Clippers. And I was like, I'm not going to know what to do. I picked them to win this series in 7 games too. I wish I could switch it. They just haven't been there. And I think they could win game 6, but I just didn't, unless they completely reinvent themselves for a game 7. What we saw in Denver tonight's not going to get it done, obviously.
Yeah, but I mean, the counter is they have been there. Kawhi's been the finals MVP in 2 different cities. Harden's been in the playoffs for his entire career. Derek Jones was in the finals last year. Norm Powell has been in big playoff games. Ty Lue coached in the finals a bunch of times. Van Gundy was in big games.
Derek Jones was in the finals last year. Yeah.
This is about as experienced of a random team as you're going to get. They don't have the best player in the series, which is a problem. Mm-hmm. And they're just trying everything possible to mess with them. But I think the best thing that happened to the Nuggets in this series, other than Jamal Murray seems to be getting better as it's going along, Christian Brown's doing, it really seems like he's in Harden's head a little bit. He's low to the ground and seems to have a sense of that herky-jerky style that Harden has. And he's doing the defensive herky-jerky version of it, and he's moving back and forth with it. And I think Harden's just having a lot of trouble going by him. In game 4, in the fourth quarter, I think because Brown was tired, Harden started going by him in the fourth quarter, but I think it might have been tired legs more than anything. But Brown seems really confident against him.
Yeah, I think if we say there's Harden, Leonard in one corner, and then you have Jokic and Murray in the other corner, the second-tier guys, the Brown and Aaron Gordon, obviously, have been great. Those, like, guy number 3 and guy number 4, those have been the Nuggets guys that have gone. Christian Brown hit that huge 3, I thought, to end the third quarter in this game, which really set the tone. He's really an emotional leader. That's sort of a big thing for him. And you mentioned earlier, Russell Westbrook, getting a performance like that too is just a huge gift. And another reason they put him over the top tonight.
Did Denver, watching them these last 5 games, and especially game 4, game 5, did it change your opinion at all about whether they could actually throw some haymakers at OKC?
The defense is still a big red flag to me. The defense is, I don't know if they're going to keep up with the Oklahoma City Thunder if they play them in the next round. So I still think that's their Achilles heel. I don't think they'll be able to hold up on that end of the court against that young, ferocious, deep team with so much rest and so much energy coming into that series. So they've won me over with this starting five, the Murray, Jokic, Porter, who has come around in this series. It feels like
after a game one no-show.
Yeah, and getting called out, kind of. I mean, by the Joker. But that starting group, I think, can hang. Where I have trouble, Bill, is below that line, where the Thunder are just, they almost have a second starting five, and this team has, Russell Westbrook and DeAndre Jordan.
OKC versus Denver, if that's what we end up with. It's an MVP battle too, which is always fun.
Oh, that's great. And it's a big Hartenstein test. That's why they got that guy.
Well, and also Denver got rid of Hartenstein.
Yeah.
James Harden, man. I don't know. I had a couple people in my life who are like, why are you so high in the Clippers? They have James Harden. I'm like, no, James Harden was good this year. It's like,
it's different this time.
He's James Harden.
Yeah. It's different, dude.
It's like, no, I'm the one for Kim Kardashian. She told me this is it. It's going to work out this time for her. That she's going to live happily ever after. We'll see what happens Thursday night. I'm going. The crowd will be great. We're due for, if you had to pick a 7-game series out of the available choices, which are probably this one, Golden State, Houston, even though Golden State's up 3-1, Minnesota, and the Lakers, which will be 3-2 after tomorrow when the Lakers shoot 68 free throws, or Detroit versus the Knicks. Who would you go for a 7-gamer? Because we're getting one. That's just the rule.
I feel like Detroit need to win one of these games. They had a tough weekend back home in Michigan. I think they're going to win Game 6 back at Little Caesars.
You want to talk about that game?
Yeah, I thought it was a great game. New York is fortunate that there wasn't a late foul call at the end of Sunday's game.
Yes, they were.
But they've been playing with fire in this series, and they've been getting away with it. I think, they had a poorly timed injury here at the end of this game. But, the Pistons have been ahead, Bill, in every fourth quarter of this series. I think in Game 1, they weren't ready for the smoke of the moment. But since then, these games all could have gone either way to an extent. And I think tonight, Cade Cunningham, they played better pick and roll offense than the New York Knicks, and they took it to them. And I'm not shocked, but I was impressed.
25, 10, and 10 for Cade. 7 turnovers. It's been an extra 3 turnovers a game for him because he has the ball so much. But the stat that jumped out to me, Detroit 7 for 29 from 3, and they went on the road. That's really hard to do.
Yeah.
The Knicks, 15 for 33 from 3. So they were +8 on threes.
Right.
And they lost at home. But the key to this game, so Detroit, they shoot 8 for 29 from 3. No surprise. They've not exactly, if Beasley's not going, not exactly like an awesome 3-point team. But the Knicks, 9 for 25 from 3. Right? So red flag number 1. Red flag number 2, Brunson 4 for 16. And it's hard to tell how hurt he is. Sometimes you can do, like, he got hurt in Game 4 and he came back and you get the adrenaline 20 minutes before your ankle starts to feel even worse than it did. He definitely looked hobbled around. He goes out at some point, probably 3-4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Then Tibbs has a chance to put him and Hart back in and doesn't use his last time out. And those guys are just standing there for a minute and a half. One of many bizarre Tibbs coaching decisions. But what you said before about the quarters, this series has been even for a week and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And Detroit, they take the leads early in these games, or they're close. They hold they're never having really swoons. Their defense and their rebounding's always been able to keep them around. And Cade's been, the most consistently good player in the series. If I'm a Knicks fan now, I'm just putting miles, even if I get through the series, I'm just putting miles on my guys who already seem worn down with the Celtics just getting rest and waiting. But do you think who do you think wins a Game 6 between these two teams based on what you've seen? I think it's going to be a hard task for the
Detroit
Knicks.
played better basketball tonight. I think the play that sealed it for Detroit, in my mind, one of the most beautiful passes of the playoffs, but Detroit just picked apart the Knicks in the pick and roll game. Jalen Duren is growing up in front of us. This kid, he's a monster in person. If you haven't seen him, it's just like one of these guys. It's just a different size than everybody else. One of the great rebounders in these playoffs. But I think like there was a pick and roll near the end. And, the Knicks sent two towards Cade, who ended up at the right elbow. And who was it who snuck into the dunks? Asar Thompson, who also played a great game.
He was awesome today. Yeah.
Sneaks. Yeah. Cat falls asleep and Cade throws that pass, a rocket pass right into the dunker, and Oscar finishes it. And it wasn't quite curtains because the Knicks made some shots, but that was just I think really emblematic of a bread and butter play where the Cade Cunningham pick and roll with Duren, sometimes it was Paul Reed, is just basic basketball, and it looks better, especially with a hobbled Brunson, than what the Knicks are able to counter with. So I think the Pistons have a very good defense. They're very young and motivated to win this game 6 at home, and the fundamental basketball they're playing right now. And one other thing is, like, you talk a lot about Tibbs coaching. I know that. Can we post up Karl Towns on Tobias Harris, please? He just dominates him when they do it.
It's like they're afraid he's going to get offensive fouls or something. I can't think of another reason.
I have no idea, but every time they do it, it's like there's no answer. Tobias Harris has no chance.
Well, you know my rule, Kirk Goldsberry.
What?
If you do something and the defense completely overreacts and doubles it because they don't have an answer for it, maybe do it again.
Yeah.
Give it a whirl. That might be a sign that it's something to do.
Particularly if Jalen Brunson is playing on one foot. I don't know what his injury is. I'm not speaking out of turn here, but if your star is hurt, you have this other guy, this other bread and butter action you could increase. And if it's going to be Tobias Harris defending Karl Towns on the block, dude, make them pay for that. Go old school. And I haven't seen enough of that, those adjustments from Tibbs.
I thought the Knicks were going to win in 5. It seemed like they were going to win in 5 tonight, and then Detroit had other ideas. I just continue to be underwhelmed by the Knicks. And I know now people could say, no, Brunson's hurt. Like, well, everybody on that team plays huge minutes. The more minutes you play, the odds are going to increase that you're going to have an injury. It's just the way it goes. But in general, like, I don't know. They did. Like, I'm not afraid of them. I said this before the playoffs. I'll say it again. I was way more afraid of playing Indiana than the Knicks. I think Indiana knows who they are. I think they have an identity. And the Knicks, not sure what their identity is. It's a lot of Brunson. It's a lot of standing around. They can have these little spurts. Towns can get hot every once in a while. Sometimes their wings look awesome. Other times I forget they're out there. For all the quote unquote awesome defense that their wings were supposed to bring, like over and over again, you see guys get the kind of shots and plays they want, like Cade. You would think like with Bridges and Anunoby, it's like we should be able to shut down Cade or limit him or whatever. And I don't think that's happened. And a lot of it has to do with he's able to get the switches he wants. I get it. But I just don't, the balance of the team just doesn't seem right to me. And I felt that way for a while.
Yeah, there's two things. The interior defense with Towns, when they made the Towns deal, that was always the red flag to me. Are we really going to see a playoff defense anchored with Karl Anthony Towns? And as I said, at this key moment, it's not his fault, but that's who you're relying on to be your rim protector. He's not always great at that. And then the other thing is sometimes the offense looks like crap. And there's multiple possessions in big moments where it's just Brunson pounding the air out of the ball and everybody else standing around. And there's either going to be a foul or some kind of fadeaway, and nobody else is going to touch the basketball. And I hate that. I hate watching it. Yeah. And I'm sure the players playing alongside, it's just not.
I don't think the fans like it either. You can feel like there's a weird energy from these Knicks games. The crowds were way better last year, I think. This year, there's a nervous energy, and you can feel the frustration. It's coming through the TV.
Yeah, the pick and roll game too. It's like they only scored 27 points in the pick and roll game, and the Pistons doubled them up in that category. Again, Cade Cunningham, it's a lot of people's introduction to him. But there's a danger because if they do win in Detroit, look out, Bill.
If the Pistons win
in Detroit, look out.
Well, so that game's going to be when? Is that a Thursday game? That is, yeah.
I don't know. It
I
felt
mean,
like
that's
March
not great for
Madness
the
today.
Knicks, right? That's 2 games later, and Brunson's hopping around, and Hart got hurt at the end of that game, and they have no bench to begin with. And
Dude,
the Pistons are young.
That's such an underrated part of this. Like Cleveland getting out in 4 games and OKC the Celts getting out of there today.
The Celts punted on Holiday for the series and kept their fingers crossed that he could get healed, and they got out of it.
Yeah, and they just need all the treatment, some cold plunges, all that rest. And these other teams are going to be flying back and forth, putting more miles on their bodies, twisting ankles. It's such an underrated part of this. So it was good that Boston emerged relatively unscathed from that Orlando series.
Well, I want to talk about that. Let's take a quick break and we'll talk Boston, Orlando. So Boston, Orlando, I was expecting a little bit more of a slugfest. It was a weird game. It was close. Close. Paolo got in foul trouble. And then the Celts went on one of those runs that they had a lot last year. They've had them intermittently this year, but more on the road than at home, weirdly. But they'll just have these third quarters or second quarters, whatever, where they'll just go on these like 28-5 runs and guys are hitting threes and they just put the game away in 5 minutes, which is what happened. I will say, and I know I talk about Tatum a lot on this podcast and people are probably tired of it, but Tatum's just been awesome.
Yeah.
And there's an edge to him that he just didn't have last year. And I think a lot of it comes from Mazzulla. I think Mazzulla spends a lot of time talking to him, talking in his ear, motivating him, pushing to be bully, pushing to be tougher. Even that play when he got knocked down, when he got hurt in game 2 or game 1, and Mazzulla's like, get up. Like he's just constantly trying to make him a beast. And you see it in these games. Like he's carrying himself down. He's got this little half sneer he does sometimes.
Yeah.
I just think he's been awesome in these games.
Is the new wrist thing that he's doing related to the injury? Is it like a celebration of overcoming the wrist injury? Is that what he's doing?
Yeah, it feels like you try to break my wrist, but it's still here, like one of those type of things.
But that's new. I like that too.
Yeah. But the thing is, Orlando can't shoot. And, they were the over-under for them winning a game in this series was probably 0.5. They won their game, but they just cannot. They can't shoot. There was that, as it was slipping away in the third quarter, Franz took a 3 and it went like over the backboard and over the rim and hit the other side of the backboard. It was one of those bricks. And it was just like, that's it. That's the highlight you need to know.
8 of 38 from 3 for the Orlando Magic. There's a couple of teams in the playoffs, like Houston, I think we'd fairly characterize as they're going to have trouble scoring the ball. But Orlando's going to definitely have trouble shooting the basketball. And then the other thing I like is Orlando does play phenomenal defense. And for a long time, the Celtics, I think, had no threes deep into the second quarter in this game.
They didn't have a 3 in the first half.
Yeah, I was trying to go back between these 2 games, and it was pretty incredible. Like, so shout out to them. They do some good stuff, and they force you into these isolation modes, and that's where Tatum really shined, I thought. And I know sometimes the Celtics are at their worst in those isolation moments.
Yeah,
but Tatum can get buckets in those moments. And they actually, if you look at the advanced stuff tonight, they really dominated in that isolation category. And that's Jason Tatum. But, it was 59-58 to your point with 6 minutes left in the third quarter. And then I don't know what the final score was. I guess it ends up being 120-89.
Well, they were 36-13 in the third quarter. I think the Celtics organization has been really impressed with Orlando. And I think there's a sense of relief that team wasn't healthier this year, that team was probably the third best team in the East. If you just, you think like Paolo goes down for a while, Franz goes down for a while, Suggs goes down for 60-65% of the year. But that team is really tough. They're not afraid of the Celts. They match up on the wings with Brown and Tatum, at least physically. They rebound. They had a couple playoff guys that weren't afraid to close on you. And I think if they just had a healthy team all year, I think that team would have been really good. And looking forward, like we were joking with Cerruti about, you got to sign Ty Jerome. Bobby Marks had a tweet where he tweeted where they were sitting going into the summer. They've kind of paid the piper already with some of their moves. They're like over, I think, $200 million with their salaries right now. Because Paolo already kicked in, Franz They paid KCP. Going down the line, like they're spending actual money now, and this is kind of the team. So their best move is going to be, can Suggs come back, be healthy, and then can Anthony Black make a leap, I think.
And Franz needs to develop the jump shot. And there's been some aggression there. You mentioned this. There's the hitch in the shot. It's not great.
No.
But if they can get healthy, Mo Wagner, Jalen Suggs, I'm not going to put them in the class of the Celtics or the Cavs, but I like where you have
could be Indiana.
4. They could replace Milwaukee in that 3, 4, 5 tier. And they might have been there this year if they had just been healthy. You alluded to it. Their 3 best guys all missed significant time, and they ended up at the 7th spot and won a game against the champs. It's just like the rung on the ladder this organization is at right now. And I think they should expect to be a little bit higher next year for sure.
Well, the Celtics definitely respected them because they brought Tatum back. They probably should have waited one more game, and they felt like they couldn't. And then they tried to roll the dice with not playing Drew and hoping he could be healthy for the Knicks series. Now he gets more time. But with the way the Knicks look, that second round series might not be as maybe grueling as you thought. The team you wouldn't want to play is Indiana.
You're confident. You're confident.
I mean, the way the Knicks look, the way the Celtics have looked for the last almost 2 years, like they have to be like pretty heavy favorites to advance to round 3. Indiana had an incredible comeback against Milwaukee that I wasn't surprised by, even when they were down 7 with 45 seconds left. I had Indiana money line in a bet, and I was like, I'm not giving up. I feel like they might make a 3. I didn't expect them to win. I thought maybe they had a chance to force another overtime. But Halliburton, and I'm texting. I have a friend who's a big Halliburton person. And I was texting midway through the 4th quarter. I'm like, typical fucking Halliburton. It's like, God forbid he takes over and does anything. And then he took over and then some. Like down the stretch in the 4th quarter, it's almost like he forgets sometimes that he could just go right by people. And what was interesting about the end of the 4th quarter in the OT, he went by Giannis. He cooked Giannis, I'm going to say 3 or 4 times. And you don't normally see somebody do that to Giannis. Including for the game-winning shot, I was stunned. Were you surprised by that?
Yeah, I said out loud, good luck with that for the game winner, because he's ISO'd on the left wing against Giannis, and he's like, I'm going to take this to the rack.
That's like, crazy. He did it multiple times.
Yeah, good luck. And he did it. In that exact moment, I was surprised. We have to go through the 7-point lead in 40 seconds. So AJ Green misses a free throw. Nembhard uses like a Miles Turner screen, and Giannis, this is his fault. He's in drop coverage. So Nembhard just rises up and shoots a 28-footer. Okay. So 4-point game, timeout. Here comes the first big blunder. AJ Green inbounds, and Trent gets trapped, anticipates a foul. It didn't come, and just throws a bad pass. Nembhard picks it off. Pacers pretty patient. Then we get the first big Halliburton play, the 3-point play. That cuts it to 1. Timeout. And then this is one of the most depressing plays in NBA history.
The Trent through the legs?
Oh, dude. I don't want to tell you what it reminded me of, Bill, because it'll trigger young.
Yeah, I thought Buckner. No, don't worry. I thought it.
All right. As long as yeah. So, dude.
I mean, the dude he hadn't had 30 points all year, and he hadn't had 8 threes all year, and he did it twice in 3 games. Trent, right? He literally carried them down the stretch, and then had 2 boneheaded plays that cost them the season, basically.
Yeah, I did a rare tweet myself. I said, overtime score, Indiana 8, Gary Trent 12, because it looked like with 1 minute left in this game, like Gary Trent had just saved the Bucks season. I feel
he
like
took 25 shots, Kirk.
Yeah. He became the second biggest player in Milwaukee after the Dame injury. And he made huge 3 after huge 3. And then these 2 mammoth turnovers, just a cruel, cruel end to their season, and potentially, Bill, the Giannis Antetokounmpo era.
There's a lot of interesting stuff, both from watching the game and the box score.
Yeah.
Brook Lopez, 7 minutes. Kyle Kuzma, 12. So Doc basically bailed on Kuzma, who was somebody they traded Middleton for, beloved Buck, to get under the salary cap. They gave up AJ Johnson, who some NBA people kind of like, and there's some swap, I think in 28, that they gave up as well. And it took Doc Rivers about 4 games to get tired of Kyle Kuzma. Giannis leaves a 30-20-13 on the court, including 18 defensive rebounds. And the game ends with him getting burned by Halliburton and then taunted by Halliburton's dad, who just looked deranged. I didn't understand what was happening, and I can't believe Giannis had the restraint. But then Giannis is saying good game to Ben Mathurin, and now he's like doing the Fredo Michael Corleone cup to the head, like, and just looked like he was gonna. Everyone was talking about this 100 guys against a gorilla. It seemed like it was gonna be 100 Pacers versus Giannis at one point. The Artest Melee too.
Dude, what happened
ending
with them? Yeah, I have no idea where to start with what happened after the game. From the Halliburton dad incident to the Mathurin hug that turns into a shove, and I've never
hug
seen
shove. Yeah.
It was.
I think
very
Giannis
strange.
was so mad at, and Giannis does a good job in the press conferences of being like, I try to be humble and blah blah blah. But Giannis is a fucking badass, man. He gets mad. Like the switch can go off with him. And I really felt like there was going to be a massive melee at the end, which would have been bizarre.
There's some troubling end of game stuff where he's a very competitive guy and he's lost his cool. Do you remember early in his career, he tackled Mike Dunleavy?
Right. Remember that other time when he went and grabbed the ball? Yeah, it was Mike Dunleavy Jr. That other time when he grabbed the ball from Indiana that started this whole, so he gets a little feisty.
Yeah, and I was worried, and it also evokes and sort of to give the Pacers a little bit of credit and some shine here. It evokes like these incredible Reggie Miller moments from that franchise's history, where they have, oh my God, what? So they just got another one of these. Like, what was you did the 30 for 30? Was it 8 points in 9 seconds?
That was one. Yeah, he had a bunch of them. No,
yeah, but the 7-point comeback, 8-0 run in 34 seconds is just unbelievable from the Pacers' perspective too.
Also in that building, which I know you've probably been there for a game, right? It's that and the Clippers arena are the two best arenas, and just cool that happened right there. I thought Nesmith, you look at the minutes and it's not really an accident. Halliburton, Siakam, Nembhard, Nesmith, and Turner just all playing huge minutes. 4 of those guys were over 40. Mathurin, he switched the rotation a little. So Mathurin and McConnell basically just come in for these little 8-9 minute stretches. That's it. Some top end, not that much. But I think when we go to this next round, and I continue to think that they have a real chance against Cleveland to at least take it 6 or 7 and throw some punches at them. But this Halliburton piece, when he realizes he can get to the rim, who's stopping him on Cleveland? Like, this is a good matchup for him. They don't really have like a good defender to throw at him. I don't know. I just think they can hang in this series.
They're going to score points. I think the front line of the Cavs will have something to say between Mobley and Allen. And, I like, DeAndre Hunter. I like, Ty Jerome obviously deserves some credit. But I think, can we do a little bit more on Milwaukee? Like, you look at this team.
Let's do it. Can we do one more thing on Indiana? And then let's do more.
Yeah. Go ahead.
What do you think the line is for Indiana, Cleveland?
Indiana, Cleveland minus 200.
Yeah. Cleveland minus 480.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. I'm telling you, nobody's respecting the Pacers. All right, let's move to Milwaukee, because that did feel like sometimes you have a feeling when it's a guy's last game for a team. I remember LeBron in 2010.
Yeah. Leaving
Boston in a very strange last game in general by him, but then taking off his jersey right at the end. And there's you just felt like, oh man, this is probably not ending well. The Giannis thing ended a little differently. It almost ended with a melee, but I find it hard to believe he's going to be a Buck next year. I don't see it.
And I was listening to Rob Mahoney and Zach, who were great the other day, and I'll stack on their point. Can you blame him? Look at what's happened around him at this franchise since they won it all. They've sort of taken the car apart piece by piece, and he's really all that's left. Like, Lopez is there, Portis is there, but Middleton and Holiday are gone. Bud is obviously gone. And what we see there is, Chris Middleton for Kyle Kuzma. Are you kidding me? And Kuzma's not even playing in these games. Played 13 minutes, was 2-5.
I did the Waz Mahoney trade deadline pod, and I was on the record adamantly. I did not see the Kuzma thing at all because he hadn't played a meaningful basketball minute or a good basketball minute for like a year.
Right. Since he was at Disney World in the pandemic. Yeah. But yeah, I think, can you blame him? I think is what Mahoney was saying. And I think it's fair. Like, he got them a title. Damian Lillard.
Can I blame him a little bit?
For leaving? For wanting to leave? You can. I mean,
can we blame him a little? Because they did that Drew Holiday trade for Dame Lillard because they were feeling some pressure with him to do something because they weren't sure if he wanted to stay or not. And that was, I thought it was a panic trade when it happened. I was in the minority, but they gave up swaps in 28 and 30. They gave up their 29 first. They gave up Grayson Allen, who had some, at least was a bigger contract they could put in a deal. And when you think about it, they kind of shot their asset wad with Dame and Giannis that I just never believed that made them like a favorite in the East. I thought it was a little bit of a Hail Mary. And would they have been better off keeping Drew? Maybe using those picks with Grayson Allen, Chris Middleton, whoever, and trying to add another piece to the foundation? I mean, in retrospect, yes.
I'll always remember I was at the Grant Williams game in Boston. I don't know if you were there.
I was.
Zach was talking about it the other day. It's like a sliding doors moment, right? Because I remember talking to everybody being like, man, it feels like we're going to be watching these two teams play for this Eastern Conference championship for a long time.
For all decade, yeah.
And then this team is just, and that's why I think it's an interesting macroscopic study. Like, you can talk about this collapse in the last 34 seconds here, but really this is a collapse that's 3 or 4 years long. And just goes to speak to the importance of ownership, transactions, roster building. But dude, I thought that Giannis and Milwaukee were going to be a big time factor for a huge part of the 2020s. And they simply haven't been since that Grant Williams game.
Well, it starts with the original Drew Holiday trade, which helped win them the title.
Right.
But also included their 24 and 26 firsts and swaps in 25 and 27, plus the George Hill, Bledsoe contracts that they kind of were trying to get off of as part of the trade. But they're playing catch up. They're playing asset catch up after that.
Yeah, and they've not made any good draft picks, Bill, during this crucial time where even if you get somebody like Dalton Connect or Corey Joseph, like when the Spurs were picking at the Derek White, we would always pick well at the end of the DeJounte Murray. You got to get those picks to keep the momentum going, to add role players. And they just haven't been able to find anybody in the draft. They have A.J. Johnson, Tyler Smith, Chris Livingston, Beauchamp, Isaiah Todd, R.J. Hampton, Jordan Nwora, like nothing. That's their 2020s draft history. So it's just they haven't been able to build from the draft either. And that's a huge reason why this roster is so thin too.
Well, the red flag was when Lazary, the co-owner, he finished his managing partner thing and then he's like, I'm out of here. And he sold his stake to the Browns owner. I was like, that's curious. And it was like, he was like 2008, The Big Short. He knew it was coming. Where do you want Giannis to go?
Oh, well, if San Antonio
just
is an
as
option,
a basketball fan, where do you want him to go?
I mean, again, hand up. I'm very biased like you are with the Celtics. I will say the San Antonio Spurs. I think it would be a really perfect pairing, evoking the great Duncan, Tim Robinson era, or David Robinson, Tim Duncan era.
Tim Robinson, Netflix comedian, Tim Robinson.
Dude, I saw his new A24 movie. What is that called? But anyway, I think that's what about you?
San Antonio is the high upside, holy shit, like galaxy brain explosion. And they have the assets, right, to do it.
Yeah.
But that would be the one that I think made everybody go, oh no, what's that going to look like? I think that's a pretty weird fit in some ways offensively, but in other ways, the fact that Wemby wants to be 25 feet from the basket and Giannis should probably be playing closer to the basket, maybe that fits, but defensively, that sounds like an all-time nightmare from how are you going to attack the rim against those two guys? You might as well
I think
just going to jack threes.
It's just like David Robinson and Tim Duncan 20 years ago. Yeah, it's that's why I love it. It's a fantasy of mine. Realistically, I don't know if that's a possibility. Have you thought about it? Other destinations?
Yeah, I mean, Russell and I talked about it a little on Sunday. Just like the obvious one's Houston, because they have the problem for Milwaukee is they don't really have their picks, so it's not like they'd, it's not like it makes sense for them to tank. Because what are they tanking for? They don't have their picks to tank for. So what makes more sense is like them doing a 2-for-1 and a 3-for-1 and getting a couple assets back with that. So that's the Rockets basically. That's one, and I think you're probably trying to get some sort of big piece. The Knicks are the other one that I think would be mildly intriguing if it was a Towns, Bridges, Giannis going back with a contract, and you start doing that.
There's been smoke around Miami and Giannis for years.
He's in the same spot there that he's in with Milwaukee. Miami sucks.
I agree.
They just got absolutely annihilated in the Cleveland series. They had their whole team. It's not like somebody was missing.
Again, when Ernie Johnson at halftime is like, "This is the worst basketball game I've ever seen."
We're not showing highlights.
He's saying that on air, by the way. He's not saying that at the water cooler before they go to the segment. He's saying that on air. That's how bad it was.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll see. I don't think he's there next year, though. It did feel like there was some sort of finality to it. But you never know with these guys. Like, the key to me is he already won the title.
Yeah.
So when you've already won, it's like, I don't know. I like it here. But there's always been some Brooklyn buzz. The problem, like with a team like Brooklyn, is can you give the assets back that actually make sense for Milwaukee, who can't tank? What's the point of Milwaukee going 20-62 next year if their pick is going somewhere else?
They might not have a choice. We've seen that one before too. But
what do you think about Wemby, by the way? Anything?
Oh, I think he's on schedule to return for next season. I haven't heard anything specific medically, but he was caught playing soccer in Costa Rica on video. I don't know if you saw that, Bill. It was a very interesting video. It was
I missed that video. That sounds great.
Hey, you got to be deep onto the Spurs message boards to see these great videos of Wemby playing soccer.
Do they rig the draft for Cooper Flag for the Spurs like they did with Tim Duncan in 1997 or no?
Well, they just got 2 Rookie of the Years in a row, so why not go for 3? I mean, shout out to Stephen Castle for getting the Rookie of the Year. Not a great class, but I thought he was deserving. I don't think they're going to rig the draft for the Spurs to get Cooper Flag. But dude, Cooper Flag can play, dude. This guy's going to change the fate of wherever he gets. This is another one of the biggest lotteries of the century. Whoever gets that number one.
Well, the good thing is there's other good guys. Like even if you get the 3rd or 4th pick in this draft, you're going to get somebody who's like, even Edgecombe is like a real guy. Like if the Spurs got him and put him with Castle and all their wings, like that's an amazing outcome.
Yeah, the Spurs have 2 picks they're pretty excited about. I think most likely outcome is 8 and 14, something like that.
Right.
And they could combine those and try to move up, or they've drafted pretty well in the past.
Or they send both of them to Milwaukee in the Giannis trade.
Or
Giannis and Wemby. I mean, talk about an international basketball team. That's like the league's wet dream.
I know.
Giannis is the greatest international story they've ever had other than Hakeem. And Wemby is going to be the true galaxy face of the league. They're hoping 4 or 5 years from now, unless Anthony Edwards takes that too. Who do you have in Minnesota Lakers?
You have to take Minnesota at this point.
Okay.
JJ Redick, I think, there's 2 reasons: depth and defense. The Lakers don't have much of either. And I think the stat was that nobody has ever played all 5 dudes for the last 24 minutes of a playoff game.
Right.
And JJ just did that. That tells you something.
Yeah, but Denver did the same thing on Saturday and it worked. Right. And now we don't have to hear about it anymore because they won the game. JJ did it. I'm not defending JJ. I don't understand why you would have paid Gabe Vincent for 5 minutes. I feel okay with Gabe Vincent out there. I didn't get that.
You'd like to think Jackson Hayes can do something, but
I don't know.
I think Minnesota just deserves credit. And the other thing is the defense. Los Angeles' defense is not good enough. Jaden McDaniels is exposing them on drives. And no disrespect to Jaden McDaniels. He's helping Minnesota win this series. But that goes to show that this is not the Thunder defense, dude. This is not the Rockets defense. This is the Lakers defense. It's been a red flag for me for a while.
No rim protection, no rim runner.
Yeah.
The rim, just not really involved.
And Luka, has not been great on defense. And again, the Western Conference is unforgiving. You want to call it a weak link era of NBA basketball, fine. We're hunting matchups, whatever you want to say. Anthony Edwards is just the best offensive player in the series right now. And on top of that, I think Minnesota has a better defense and more depth. So I'm taking Minnesota, Bill. I agree. I think there might be a free throw discrepancy tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? I'm guessing it's tomorrow.
I'm going tomorrow, and I'm just going to be laughing the whole time.
You're going to games back to back, huh?
Oh,
Sports
basketball, playoff basketball in LA. It's the best.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, it's going to be over soon. Have you seen anything that makes you think it's not going to be Boston OKC?
I think Cleveland deserves a little more respect. And the Drew Holiday hamstring injury, Bill Simmons.
Not happy about it.
Yeah, not great. So, look, Cleveland, I think if Boston is limited, somehow Cleveland is a very dangerous team. So Drew Holiday and street clothes is my answer to that question. Have I seen anything that makes me think Boston might not get there? If he comes back, I love that dude. If Porzingis is healthy, if Tatum is playing like this, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Joe Mazzulla, I think they deserve to be favorites coming out of the East. But Cleveland is shooting the shit out of the basketball. They've been a great team all year. They've won in Boston, if I'm not mistaken.
No, Mitchell always does well against Celtics. They're always good games. It'll be a good series.
I'm picking Boston, but I will not be shocked whether it's because Drew Holiday's limited, somebody else goes down, that Cleveland wins the Eastern Conference. So I think that's the case. On the Western side, OKC, again, clear favorite. I don't see anybody in their class right now on the Western Conference side.
I don't either, but who knows with this Minnesota piece. And who knows with Golden State, because Golden State's love playing OKC forever. And, I would, if I had to bet, I would stick with my preseason OKC Boston. But I think Minnesota and Golden State, and then the way Denver played tonight, who knows? All right, Kirk Goldsberry, writing for TheRinger.com, popping on our podcast. Always good to see you.
Thank you, Bill. Good to see you.